So now in our lives, in our training, we're moving to something called retreat. For many of us, it's not that different or drastic a change. We're used to this kind of shift of tempo and orientation. Still, it's always a very sound point to make the beginnings. Things have an apparent beginning. We make use of that to review both what we've inherited, what's come to us, and the nature of mind, citta, awareness. And so citta is these two fundamental aspects. One has an aspect of knowing or awareness, which doesn't do anything by itself. It's just open, reflective. And then we have another aspect which is about being affected and responsive. We're moved, we're touched, we're interested, we're inspired, we're annoyed. It's kind of rippling. So it's rather like a lake, which is lake always has some reflection on it. And yet it's moving. Two aspects. And if it gets very mobile, we lose the reflection. And it becomes extremely choppy, you can't read, you can't understand, you can't get discernment going, because you can't really read what the ripples, what they're doing, what they're telling you. There's a rock here, there's a tree stump sticking up here. If the surface is so broken up, we can't really read the messages of the ripples. So that need for calming, so that our reflection can, as it scans the lake, wisdom arises. This is where I get stuck, this is where I get agitated, this is where I get impetuous or despondent. Underneath this, there's an obstacle. Look in here. Calm and insight lead to wisdom. Wisdom leads to the removal of these obstructions, which are, different layers of it, hindrances, and asava outflows, fundamental unconscious reflexes. We don't decide to have them, we don't make them happen, they're just running under the surface. Like the streams pouring into a lake, filling it up with potential to be moved, rippled, stirred. One does need some understanding of this, even just to get an idea of it. This is what everything that occurs in that lake is taken very personally. One feels guilt, regret, misunderstandings, and so on. Trying to make it work. When it's taken personally, the person tries to make it work, blames herself because they can't make it work. But actually the person is just a ripple. Or a series of ripples. Can't calm the lake. Person can understand, begin to recognize that and say, well, what is this? This experience, citta, heart, awareness. What happens here? Just as phenomenological, just as sheer process. And that does tend to help a lot, just to lift out of the engagement with it all. And of course the other fundamental requirement is a good deal of heartfulness, compassion, kindness, equanimity, gladness. So that we don't just contract into some little safe space, willing to touch what's difficult with a mind of goodwill. And it's really necessary. Otherwise, we do tend to just find a little place we're not going to be bothered. Hold on to that. And that builds up. You kind of lock some stillness in. Protect. Understandable, but a purely short-term benefit and long-term consequences aren't good at all. A really wide span requires a lot of good heart. So all these terms, heart, awareness, mind, these can all be used to describe what citta is about. Everything lands on it, everything touches it. Anything that happens, it affects it, some way or another. So often as we do, we begin our practices with two kinds of themes. One of forgiveness, the other sharing, merit, gratitude. These help to widen our perspectives from the purely personal. It's truly, when we ask forgiveness, it's a widening into a sense of compassion. Mistakes are inevitable. Yeah. Because apart from anything else, we're operating in this kind of medium of an internal reality, apparently, and an external reality. The external reality called things out there, machines, tools, times, dates, all stuff out there that we can move around with our hands or with our brains, stuff like that. Moving objects around of great suitable structures and organised things. And for that requires a particular kind of attention. It's generally object-oriented, quite closely focused. And it's not necessarily endowing what we're doing with a quality of goodwill by itself. We just want to make it work. I don't give a blessing to the spade when I pick it up. I just pick it up and try to avoid breaking it. And know which end to use. Well, it might be a good idea to actually give a blessing to a spade that you might not break it. Internal reality is where we sit and we meditate, we come back to that, and it's a different landscape. Because you can't just make things work, you can't switch things on and off, there's no manual there. It's felt, and it doesn't just switch on and off. It doesn't operate according to rational principles. You're not separate from it. You can't pick it down and put it up. Put it down and pick it up. It's there. It's moving and shifting. Different mode of attention operates in that domain. Much more emphasis on sensitivity and feeling for balances and, steadiness, sensitivity, responsiveness, and a feeling for how one steadies, calms, arouses, maintains, steadies, it's internal maintenance. So these are really a different mode of attention. You don't do that with a spade or a computer, it doesn't work. You just want to make sure the thing got the right button, right, da-da-da-da-da. That's that. So a particular kind of attention and intention, which is get the thing done. If I work at this hard enough, I'll get to the end of that, then it's done. That mode of attention and intention doesn't work on the internal domain. In fact, it messes it up. Trying to get it done doesn't work. Trying to push a button doesn't work. Bearing with it. It's much softer, receptive, bearing with it, opening to it, relaxing with it, breathing into it, bringing your heart into it, bringing the vitality of your body into it, bringing the brightness of your intentions into it. That works. If we know what work means, it means it arrives at a harmony. And it is non-dualistic. It means eventually the process means that the citta becomes unified. It's no longer somebody doing something. There's just the moderation of these factors, mindfulness, clear understanding, you name them, all the skillful factors, blending into our mind, our breath, our body, and they begin to melt together, the quality of collectedness and composure. It's a different mode of operation. These two modes are operating all the time, and it's naturally there's a bit of conflict between the two. We say something like 8 o'clock or 11 o'clock is a very meaningful, useful thing in terms of external realities. It's completely meaningless in terms of internal ones. And yet, it's quite important to, get on the bus by 1 o'clock. Not when you feel like it or when your energy's ready for it, or just at 1 o'clock. Not when you're in the right mood, but at 1 o'clock. So that means sometimes you have to rush, or sometimes you hang around waiting because somebody hasn't turned up, or sometimes you don't feel quite, energy's not right for it, but you do it. So there's a certain sense you do that, and then you begin to, let's just relax now, steady up, and let things pass. You come into harmony again. But of course, these external realities are happening not just once a day, but a lot of the time. And naturally, there's a certain effect we haven't necessarily processed. All of the, the pressures here, or the waiting there, or that broke, or she didn't understand what I was saying, or why didn't so-and-so tell me about that? Why do I do this? And nobody ever does that. That kind of thing going on. Because this is the reality we're in. That's why. It's not personal. We can make it personal. Like he's uncooperative, or she's always late, or he never listens clearly, or you can make it very personal. Suffer a lot. Create enemies, get negative, or we can just like this, isn't it? We're in this. And whose fault is it? That's what we're going to find out. Why doesn't the saw work? It's the workshop manager's fault. Why doesn't the computer work? It's the no, it's not. It's not. That doesn't give you the results. It doesn't work because it's like this. There's never been a system that works. They kind of work some of the time, most of the time for some people now and then, and to a reasonable degree of the rest of it. It's just what does work is the internal reality. And so we've got to return to that, because that can diffuse the stress, the expectations, the disappointment, the urgencies, the frustrations, the personal misunderstandings. There were three of you in the kitchen. There was James, who really wanted to cook a lovely meal because it was his mother's birthday, and there was Toby, who was the larder manager and really wants to get rid of the cabbage and onions because they're going off. And there's Lee, who just turned up yesterday in the monastery, doesn't really know much at all, never boiled an egg in his life, is in the kitchen together. And they've got completely different internal realities going. Everybody's trying to do the best they can. James wants to do a really nice meal for the benefit of his mother. Toby wants to get the larder, get rid of those cabbages and onions. And Lee just wants to survive his first day in the kitchen, because he doesn't know where anything is, doesn't know the people, doesn't know anything. He's just completely nervous, and yet they're all, why is Lee so lazy? Why doesn't he? Because he doesn't know where the knives are kept. Why does Toby keep giving his cabbage? I want to cook. That's something nice for my mother. Toby, why is James so demanding? He wants this, that and the other. And Lee's thinking, why do they don't like me? I'm trying to do the best I can. I want to make this work. Because they're all operating, at that particular point. And what does work, we all experience, hey guys, we all suffer. And, oh yes. And we all feel we've got particular angles we want to have happen, that we value, they're all valuable, they all have worthy of listening to. Yes. Okay, let's work it out, And it's marvellous when there can be that resolution. That's what Sangha's about, really. Meeting these places of where these, things don't line up. And instead of just creating, little grudge groups or blaming people or whatever, it's okay, we suffer. There is suffering. There is stress. And if we start with internal realities, it would be nice to cook that for my mother, but actually probably best to just avoid creating stress and suffering. And that would be for my mother's benefit, and my benefit, and everybody's benefit. Yes. It'd be good to get rid of the cabbages and onions, but come on, let's not make a mission out of it. And let's have a bit of sympathy for Lee, who just turned up yesterday, he doesn't know what's going on. Yes, okay. Right, that's where we are. Then you just work out, well, you've got to get something on the table by around about 11:30. They're not going to complain. Do the best you can. That's it. So you really try to work out, the external, because the one you can get right, really, is this internal quality. When we say we ask forgiveness, it's not like, it's a karma taught. And sometimes in the sutras it talks about having forgiveness to the sense realm. So it's not even personal, it's just recognizing there's always going to be this kind of, conflict points where things are uncooperative or sharp or tasteless or bitter or, and instead of creating that kind of resistance, tension around it, we widen and accept the dissonance. We widen and accept the dissonance and, And naturally when you accept dissonance, what happens is compassion. You don't have to cook up some compassion. The very acceptance of dissonance, compassion helps by itself. Dissonance not as a personal failing, but as the first noble truth, the characteristic of conditioned reality. Meet it. First. And then we can pick up the pieces about, okay, let's try and do it this way, better that way, better this way, better that way, for now. And 2 weeks later, we're going to be doing it again. It's an ongoing theme, isn't it, in our lives? So we're wanting to do that. Because even nothing has particularly gone wrong for you, or felt uncomfortable for you, just that sense of, for sure it's happened for somebody. And that opening to a quality of compassion for people who look a bit tense or withdrawn or unsettled. You never go wrong with that. Because that becomes the domain, kindness and compassion becomes the atmosphere of your own dwelling. As you're also contemplating your own dissonances and absences and struggling places. You're trying to cover it with right and wrong, it's not going to work. But that this quality of kindness and compassion is not just an idea like thanks a lot or sorry about that. There's an energy to it. There's a heart energy. These heart energies are as real as anything else. We feel gladdened, you know what that feels like. If you're saddened, you know what that feels like. Definitely a heart contracts, sinks or rises. And the qualities of the Brahmavihara, kindness, compassion, gladness and equanimity are steady widening qualities. They don't surge up, they don't sink down. They just widen to include. And the wider, more inclusive they can get, the more firm one's foundation becomes in that. So the qualities of cynicism, self-criticism, fatalism, blaming oneself or others, those don't get much foothold. Because the quality of the ill will is not just sheer hatred, it's all the depression, feeling of inadequacy, trying to be better than I am, perfectionism, comparing oneself negatively with others, or comparing other people negatively with yourself. Comparing how you were with how you are, comparing how you are with how you should be. All that, has got this, it's an illness of the will. Because when that's there, the heart can't move smoothly. So it's a sickness. Hits something and it just stays there. She's better than me. I can't try to be as good as he is. Well, you feel what that feels like. There's a obstacle being created there. The pond shivers and can't expand. We belittle ourselves or strain ourselves. So it's widening. It's all there and it's all comic and none of it's personal. This is and then deepening into that, so it's an attitude of heart, mind, but you get qualities a certain, almost touching the ground, because you think, yeah, exactly. That's right. That's how it is, isn't it? These are the fundamental roots, or skillful roots. Non-violence, that which doesn't blame, attack. Non-callousness, that which is sensitive, rather than dismissive, or hard-skinned. Renunciation, that which doesn't prioritize the sense fields, but prioritizes the heart instead. These are the three sammasankappa bases. And they're founded on right view, because those are the qualities that are going to bring around skillful Dhammas. They're impersonal. And just the nature of them is to bring around skillful results. We need to tune in to what's possible. And these are, in the Buddhist presentation, these are prior to mindfulness. Say mindfulness is just, say when your view is straight, and your virtues are clear, then you establish mindfulness in three ways. The way the Buddha put it. So you get the heart right, and then you establish mindfulness in three ways. What are the three ways? Internally, externally, and both. No, internally and externally, both together. Internally, when we're dwelling in what's felt, intuited, sensed. Externally, we contemplate what's seen, seemingly out there. Mindful of its change, mindful of its disappearance, mindful not to hang on to it, mindful to treat it with respect. And where the two meet, which is often the interpersonal domain, isn't it? When we are working together, living together, operating according to a group system. As an external reality that we try to treat carefully with respect, and an internal reality, just how we're feeling at this moment. And mindful of these two, how to bring them together, blend them, so we can be living harmoniously. You're mindful of that. You bring your right view, your right approach. It's not like you're doing this because it's military. No, that's not the right view, right approach. Doing this because you're told to, no, it isn't the right view, that approach. Doing this because the opportunity to receive the benefit of an external situation which is extremely simple, doesn't require a lot of tweaking and twiddling and managing, so we can deepen more fully into internal realities and come to terms with them. In this time, this occasion, there's that possibility to dwell internally, the internal aspect of body, its vitality, its breathing, its nervous or energy, whether it's soft or jittery, breathing through it. Now, when we say breathing, Naturally, people assume we're talking about something external that you could measure, like the length of a breath or air moving in and out of your lungs, but actually it's the internal quality of breathing is just this shifting of energy through the body, prana, life force. Changes as you breathe in and breathe out, shifting of that. And as you dwell in that, if you contemplate that, you can pick up that quality, focus on that quality, and you realize it's there all the time. And it can relieve tension, make you feel more grounded, stabilized, and relax the emotions. Emotional and psychological stuff, which is all wired up and all bound up together. Kaya sankara, chitta sankara, vaci sankara. Bodily formative processes, breathing in, breathing out. Mental form, heart processes, impulses, perceptions, meanings, how they touch, cause us to be affected, gladdened, saddened, and verbal realities, our jumpy, chattering mind. It's, you're living a meaningful life, you want to bring all those into harmony. Breathing through, calming, steadying, witnessing. And that potential to let go of things. This is redundant, this is where the obstacle is, this is the wrong assumption, it was the wrong aim. Okay. This was too fast, this was too impulsive, that's where it went wrong. And use to clean one's house. So that there's less of that, the pond, if you like, a lake of our citta is much, you can read it more clearly. And you realise there is this ability to read it. We're not just a series of cause and effects. And this, of course, is the liberation potential. We're not just cause and effect, there's also this. It's awareness, witnessing. But that doesn't stand out until one has done some work with the cause and effect. It's true in theory that when you can be aware of, there is some awareness and knowing you feel dull and sleepy, but the Buddha certainly encouraged us not to work against it. You don't just know you're dull and sleepy, you know, and you think this is a potentially dangerous state in which wisdom can't arise. So let's see if you can bring some energy up, straighten the body, take a few breaths, walk up and down. Here I'm feeling cranky and nasty. What's happening here? Sourness of the will. Kindness, equanimity towards that, not personal. Seems very personal. Every experience is this, around something or the other. What's happened? One felt left out, excluded. It's often exclusion, inclusion. You didn't get heard, you didn't get the same as everybody else, you felt lessened. There's a kind of irritated experience. Meeting that. Goodwill. Rising above it. We're able to rise above it also because we have that capacity to appreciate Although the causes and effects, we can see them as there are problematic ones, of course, and also not to get mesmerized by it, many beneficial effects that we've inherited through our own good fortune or good efforts, and also through the efforts and skills of others, and being in a suitable situation. So we taking that in, mudita and amodana. Very important to cultivate this, because it's generally the thorn in your thumb that you feel, not the 9 digits that don't have any thorns in them. It's the one that hurts that you notice. You don't notice the ones that don't hurt. So you have to make an effort. Incline. Again, this means wide, often suffering tends to isolate you into a little tight heap around a particular topic or an identity. You know, I'm not, I am, I'm not. A very narrow field. Yeah? My problems, my failures, beat myself up. And I get into that narrowness. Yeah? And we lose access to gladness. So it's kind of self-acceptance, forgiveness. This is dissonance. It's not some uniquely personal experience. Can we accept that? Can we stop creating an issue out of it? Can we stop creating identity out of it? Feel it just as that agitation in the heart, breathing through, widening, appreciate. A lot of good here. A lot of fundamental strength. The human beings have resilience, beginning again. There's a lot of endeavours that people undertake for our welfare. We're deeply gladdened by that. And we all have the gift of consciousness and clarity to some degree, otherwise we wouldn't be here. We all have an ethical orientation, otherwise we wouldn't be here. Part of our sorrow is that sometimes we fail in that. We say the wrong thing. But that just is a learning place. There's no point going to recriminations and tightening around it. We are of the nature to forget. We're of the nature to be while it's there, it's still there. So you've got to touch into the gladness, the appreciation, to derive replenishment. Replenishment. Filling up. This is a very important aspect of practice. And sometimes it's neglected. If you just, getting through a period of meditation, the bell rings, you get that time when you just rise and, we've done some work. We've been through something. We've held, we've met, we've in a place of depth. This is so normal in this cultivation field and rather rare in the world outside, where people are just bouncing off, escaping, distracting, blaming, jumping, sinking, wailing, lamenting. And we've met the dukkha and become wide and compassionate through that. This is definitely the possibility, ongoing possibility of our lives. And if this becomes established, it's no longer a particular practice that you do. You don't practice it in a self-conscious way. It's just the nature of the rightly balanced citta. It is. How else can you meet the failing, conditioned world in a way that's healthy? Getting frustrated, getting upset, no, it doesn't do it. Compassion. How else do you receive benefit from this conditioned world? I think it's a consider work project or something where you can drink in the good results on the conditioned level. Yeah. Mindfulness has arisen for me. Wow, great. You know, ethical clarity has arisen. Yeah, it doesn't always arise for everyone. So we feel grateful for these kind of internal conditions that arise, when they arise, and become part of our reality. So you name them, notice them, and appreciate what's there. These will cause, in their own way, they'll do what the person can't do. Soothe, widen that lake. The reflection becomes very clear, bright. This is our way the teacher taught, for very good reason, because it's a path we can do, and that we must do, to fulfill what is needed for our welfare and happiness.